Welcome to the Oddschecker podcast. We are today previewing the first day of the Cheltenham Festival, and I am joined by a panel of three experts who are going to unleash the value on day one. We are recording this on the Monday morning, the week before the festival, so of course if any of this is outdated, we apologise, but I'll be going through the prices as they are at the moment. And I'm joined firstly by Oddschecker Tipster, Cheltenham maestro, at massive profit last year and every year at the festival as well, and a man in form at the moment in Andy Holding.
Hi George, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Also, racing journalist and tipster Tony Calvin joins us as well. Cheers, Tony, for coming in.
No worries.
And Joe Chambers, the racing manager for Susannah Ricci. So obviously, all the listeners and viewers are going to get the inside track into the Susannah Ricci's horses for the festival, and many other tips as well coming from Joe.
Morning.
Let's get straight into it. Firstly, just going to point out and mention the Oddschecker Injured Jockeys Fund campaign. For every bet placed through Oddschecker, either on the app or through our site using QuickBet, we will be over £1. We'll be donating 5p to the IJF. It's a really important cause. So if you don't have the app already, or you haven't used QuickBet before, and during the festival you have those bets, you'll be donating something that's so important to the racing industry. And I can only encourage you to do so. But without further ado, let's get into the festival and the curtain raiser, the opener, the Supreme Novice Hurdle. And I'm going to come to you first, Joe. We've seen in the past, the owner that you work for have some pretty special horses coming into this race. This year, just the one entry in Animix. Can we expect Animix to line up in that first race?
Absolutely no idea. Last season we thought he was a very good horse based on a number of pieces of work that he had done, particularly on away days. And he ran at Limerick, I think it was on the 28th of December, at a time when, in fairness, Willie's horses didn't run all that well over Christmas. But it didn't look the greatest of maiden hurdles, and while he jumped very well, he was a very tired animal after it. Haven't seen him since. Willie's left him in the 3 Grade 1 novices, which only adds to our confusion at this stage. But we still think he's a good horse. He'll be a lovely chaser in time. But he's, for whatever reason, be it the ground, the weather, or the prevailing race conditions in Ireland this season, we haven't, not just him, but we haven't seen 2/3 of our novice hurdlers and novice chasers for that matter. And you can probably apply the same ratio to Willie's string in general. I mean, I don't think he's had a debut bumper runner since the 26th of December in Ireland, as an example. So, and then yesterday they got 23 mil of snow at Leopardstown by the time the bumper came around. So that probably sums that up. Look, if he turns up, I'll probably back him on the day, because something has to win the race, and at the moment I can't figure out what. But he may or he may not, and if he does, I'd say it'd be the Supreme or the Ballymore rather than the Bartlett that he would turn up in.
So rattling through the market at the moment, Betfair Hurdle winner Al Dance is the 100-30 favourite. Fakir Duderi is the 5-1 second favourite. Angel's Breath back into 6-1, having gone out to 16-1, having been turned over just a week or so ago. After a few shrewdies the next day were pointing out that maybe the performance was a little bit better than the finishing position suggested. Elixir de Nuts next up is 8-1. Mr. Fisher, who's a very interesting runner for Nicky Henderson as well, at 11-1. Grand Sancy at 12-1, and then 14-1 Bar. Andy, you got the followers off to a flyer last year with Somerville Boys. So who's going to win the Supreme this time around?
Well, I'm only 2 points down, aren't I? I put up Getaway Trump in the belief that perhaps he might win the Betfair Hurdle, switch of course to Ascot. The theory was right because Al Dancer won it, obviously one of the novices, but the Getaway Trump didn't, which is a bit of a shame. He's now going to probably be rerouted or maybe not even go to the festival. But Al Dancer was the winner of that aforementioned Betfair Hurdle. It's been a race that has thrown up lots of good novices that have gone forward to the festival and run well without winning. You get me out of here's your Ballyandys, etc., etc.
Kalashnikov last year as well.
Kalashnikov, of course, who went very close last year, beaten by Somerville Boy. And in a fairly weakish year, I'd say, in this division, I'd say just about sets a standard. There's 2 ways of looking at Al Dancer, really. His Cheltenham win when he won on early on in the season, when he won on the new course. I clocked him running a much quicker circuit time than Elixir de Nuts, roughly about 15 lengths difference, 3 seconds. So I'll be pretty sure that Al Dancer's a better horse than Elixir de Nuts, and he, of course, has gone on to win a Grade 1. But then the Ascot race. Now this is the race where you think, I'm not really sure what to make of it, because obviously he was in the first 3 or 4 throughout. It was a very slowly run race, as we all know, and the fact that the 100-1 rag managed to hang on and finish third tells you that something not quite right about that race. It doesn't sit right with me. So it's a difficult one, really. You've got one piece of form to say he's a genuine possible Grade 1 horse, and another one to say he's below average. A lot will depend on how he settles in the race, and that's another key point with him, because obviously he's a very buzzy type. He wears the hood. If they go a million, then he's got a better chance of settling, a better chance of getting home. Would I back him at 5-2, or 3-1, or whatever?
130 if you use an Oddschecker.
Sorry, 130, even better. That doesn't even make any appeal to me. I think if you're on obviously 12, 16s, like a lot of good judges are, great. You're in a fantastic position. You haven't got to worry. He's almost, barring accident, certain to run well. Therefore, looking away from Al Dancer, I'd certainly give Angel's Breath, his owner, companion, a big shout. I agree with what you said with your sentiments about that Kempton run. He drifted out to 16-1, which is a bit of an overreaction, because going back and looking at the way he ran like a stayer. I don't know what the boys think. I think Kempton didn't suit him. He was on his head all the way through that race. I thought it was a good ride by Harry Cobden on Southfield. I forgot his second name now. Southfield Stone, yeah. Who quickened away from him off the turn, showed a nice turn of foot, and then he stayed on very strongly. He looks as though he wants further than 2 miles, but for now I think a strong run 2 miles. If it's soft as well, I mean, we haven't talked about that. I think there's a lot of rain forecast for Cheltenham. The softer it is, the more emphasis on stamina it is, the more this fellow will come into his own. So I definitely think he's one for the each-way merchants. And if the juvenile was to run in this race, Fakir Dudaris, and I've heard a little bit of a rumour in the last few days, I only hear say that all's not well with that horse, unfortunately, for those of us who have nailed some nice prices about him switching from the Triumph. I think he'd be a massive player, because the juveniles have got a good record, the ones that have run in it, and I think he's an above average one. I actually think he'd win the Triumph Hurdle regardless of Sir Eric being in it or not. He's that good. Away from that, I haven't really got a strong opinion. I think Classical Dream will probably run in the Ballymore. He looks more of a stayer. Aramon quickened past him and then got outrun on the running at Leopardstown last time. I think he wants good ground, so obviously soft ground might impede his chances. So all in all, if Fakir was to run and he gets a clean bill of health, I think he'd probably take all the beating, because I think he's just probably too good. But other than that, I think Angel's Breath, at the prices in front of me now, if it's going to be soft ground, I think he's a nice each-way price.
Tony?
I like the shape of the race because I'm keen to take out a Dancer on. Obviously, Andy said about that Ascot run. Not sold on that whatsoever. Now rated 152, but I think that could well flatter him on the back of that Ascot run. I agree with the Fakir Dudaris getting £8. I mean, that's a massive concession given what he did at Cheltenham in the Triumph Hurdle trial. But everyone's talking about Angel Breath, but Nico de Boinville's probably got quite a difficult decision to make between him and Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher, good winner of the Rossington. The Kempton form has been franked by Rougefish at the weekend. But what I can tell you about Angel Breath, if you do fancy him, Nico came away from that very, very positive. He just said they had to get a flu jab into it before that run, so he probably wasn't at peak fitness there. And also, he said he was coming to win his race there, and he said he just felt the horse take a blow, so he wasn't overly hard on him. He did shape more like a stayer to me, but like I said, I think you're going to get ground on the soft side of good to soft, no matter what nature does. I think, bearing in mind the safety concerns, the health and safety with, it's obviously very important at the moment for the course and for the sport. So I think you're going to get good to soft, leaning towards soft anyway, no matter how much rain falls. So that will probably go into its favour there. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's going to be an actual peak supreme. This I've backed a couple. I've backed Grand Sancy at 14s. I had a little nibble at Angel Breath. But Grand Sancy is my major fancy. He lacks. He doesn't have the sexy profile of the less exposed, the likes of Angel Breath, but he's already shown a very, very good level of form, similar to a horse. It's nearly a fifth of his price, Al Dancer. Really, he's got a half length to find Elixir de Nuts on that Tolworth form. He travelled like the best horse in the race that day on ground, probably very, very soft, and that Sandown soft can be very, very cloying. And obviously, he clocked a decent time when beating So Royale, 159 rated chaser, and Vision to Flow was back in further at Wincanton last time, and he came out and won at Fontwell as well. So I think Grand Sancy's probably it's back to it's into 12s now, and I don't think there's a lot of juice in that price because he hasn't got the profile of a horse that's really going to shorten up. But maybe I'll be looking towards Gronsey with the extra places on the day. But yeah, I'm keen to take an Al Dancer at the prices. I wouldn't be laying him at 3s or 130 because I'm not into playing at 2 to 7 on or 130 or whatever. But yeah, Gronsey seems to be underrated on form. Whether or not something can improve past him, that's the worry. But on what we've seen so far, Gronsey probably doesn't deserve to be 12s. And if you're looking for something at a bigger price, if you like a Nick Elixir, the nuts at 8s and 9s. If you like Gronsey at 12s, if you believe in Ollie Murphy, go back to his early season form in November. Itchy Feet has got a very, very good chance compared to that. I know the two aforementioned horses have improved, but Itchy Feet on its early season form, shouldn't be a 33 to 1 shot in places. I think Black Toe 33s at the time of writing, time of speaking even. Apparently, they're looking to get a run into him, but again, the flu jab intervened there, so they decided just to back off and bring him here fresh. Just summarising, Gronsey, but maybe wait to the day, maybe a bigger price than he is now, and with extra places.
Interesting looking down at those bigger prices ones. You mentioned Itchy Feet for Ollie Murphy, who's 33 to 1. Thomas Darby and other horses run behind some decent horses for Ollie Murphy as well at 25s. Don't know where he's going to run yet. Rouge Viv, who obviously beat Getaway Trump over the weekend at 33s, who ran behind Mr. Fisher. So maybe less high profile trainers with some interesting runners as well in the race. Joe, any others catching your eye?
You haven't mentioned Ollie Murphy's best one. I think if Brewing Up a Storm came back to 2 miles, I think I'd nearly make him that material. I think he's probably his best novice hurdler, and he's got a few good ones.
Bit of blue on Oddschecker, Joe. I don't know if you this morning, when you're looking through it, you had a bit of a go at Brett.
No, I haven't. No, it's just I was looking last night, and he's just a horse I really like, and you can imagine being Ollie Murphy, Warren Greatrex, and Nigel Twiston Davis. They all travelled to Hereford one day last year for a bumper. And I think Brewing Up a Storm beat Portrush Ted, who went on to win the Grade 1 bumper at Aintree. And
which worked out very well as well.
The third horse of Twiston's won the chase at Kelso, I want to say, at the weekend.
Yeah.
And I think it's won its last 4 or 5. So, and he was beaten 15 lengths. I just think Brewing Up a Storm is a very good horse, but it looks like he's running the Ballymore, which I think is a far more competitive race. Just of the Irish ones, just to give them a shout, Felix Deji won the Moscow Flyer, which historically has been a good trial. I think he got a bit of a freebie in front, but he's a horse Gordon's always told an awful lot of, and he hasn't been shy in coming forward about him, particularly last year. And maybe they've just found the key to him now and jumping him out in front. He's not going to get a freebie in the Supreme, I don't think. But of Willie's 2 main ones, Aramon and Classical Dream, anytime Ruby doesn't pick one of ours in a race, he's yet to be wrong. So when he got off Aramon to ride Classical Dream at Leopardstown the last day, that probably told me that he didn't think Aramon was going to be a Supreme horse, and he probably wanted to find out if Classical Dream was. So where that leaves you, I don't know. There's a horse I really like who has been taken out at the last forfeit called Bright Forecast. He looks as though he's going to run in the Ballymore.
He is.
But keep an eye. There's a horse in Ireland called Sam's Profile that is likely to run in the Ballymore or the Bartlett, but Mouse Morris thinks he's got another war of attrition on his hands. And if it did come up soft and he dropped him back to 2 miles, I wouldn't be afraid of having a few quid in him at a huge price. Only because now and again when Mouse gets one and he knows he has one, he knows how to deliver him, and he does tend to run them in the correct race, but where he'll go I don't know. But I like the Mr. Fisher form line through Rouge Vif, or however you pronounce it, and I just think it's wide open. I'm probably going to back a few rags on the day.
So you mentioned the Sam's Profile there. I think he's trading about 1,000 to 1 on the machine at the moment. So if you're quick,
he's still in it.
Yeah, exactly.
He's in all 3 novices still. They're leaning towards the Ballymore, but if this rain that we've had the last 24 hours continues and it does turn up softer, wouldn't surprise me if Mouse dropped him back.
Well, it's a classic non-run and no bet player, isn't
it?
Of 50s rather than throwing it away on the win only.
Yeah. So we don't want this podcast just to be a Supreme Novices podcast. We better move on now to the Arkle. So in the Arkle, we've got Laylor leads the market at 130, and the mightily impressive Glen Forza at 9 to 2, Duke de Geneva 13 to 2, Defi de Soy 8 to 1, Paloma Blue 10 to 1, Hardline 12 to 1, Kalashnikov 12 to 1, 14 to 1 Bar. Andy, how are you approaching this one?
Well, I think the first thing to say, we've got 24 at the moment declared.
Yeah, it's going to cut up.
I think we're going to get pretty much sure a small field again.
Yeah.
Maybe 6, 7, 8 again. Unfortunately, a lot of horses are going to be elsewhere. Another thing to say, they're going to go pretty strong gallop, I'd suggest here. If they do run Articulum, he's a strong front runner. Ornea, Henry de Broment's horse, we know he goes off fairly sharpish.
Us and them as well.
Us and them. Knockenhouse. He doesn't hold back. So you're going to need something that's probably just going to be ride a little bit more circumspectly. And that's an interesting dilemma, I think, for Glenn Forcer and his pilot, because he normally, or has been at his best when he's made the running himself. He doesn't necessarily have to lead. It's not in tablets of stone with him, because he didn't make the run in the day when he won at Chepstow. If he were mine, I'd look at the race and say, right, okay, we've got a good opportunity here just to slipstream this strong pace. Don't get involved in the early gallop. We know he stays 2.5 because he's won at 2.5 at Chepstow and, of course, at Kempton. And what he has got, Glenn Forcer, is an amazing cruising speed. I've clocked this horse doing some unbelievable figures. The day when he won at Sandown last time out, he was visually impressive. Obviously, battered Kalashnikov. And it might have only been a 3-runner race, but his numbers compared to the older handicap, won by not another muddle, were absolutely astonishing. I mean, he was like 25 lengths quick. If you do the 2 races split screen and you watch where Glenn Forcer's gone past the line, you see where not another muddle is. It's quite amazing. And he was doing it all in hand without being seriously pushed. He's a seriously good horse, Glenn Forcer. And I think he's kind of like gone under the radar a bit because connections, or let's say the general public, thought he was going to run in the Close Brothers. Yeah. You know, he's the same connections as Mr. Whittaker. We could all see the patterns he was taking. He was going to get a mark and get in the Close Brothers off 140 and dot up in that. But I've got a close friend that knows the yard quite well, and he told me before the Cheltenham race, I think I told the lads in the office, that he was not going to run in that trials race, in the 2.5 mile race, and he was going to run in a 2 mile race, and when they're going to train him for the Arkle.
No one told me, Andy. I don't.
Was he 40s that morning? He was because
was 40 to 1.
The stable lad at Shannon's backed him in Corals and Esher that morning.
That's it. Yeah. I told your son actually.
Yeah, he didn't tell me.
He didn't tell me either.
Kept that to himself.
I know he's on as well. So
yeah.
He was quite happy when the Ricci ball came out as well.
Yeah. the stars have all aligned for Glenn Forcer. Yeah. He's beaten Kalashnikov, forcing connections maybe of Kalashnikov to go elsewhere. And he's just got so much in his favour. The only thing we don't know is whether he goes around Cheltenham. 1 or 2 of the other horses have got Cheltenham form. But he's a serious piece of kit, this Glenn Forcer. Like I say, he can be ridden either way. He's not unnatural. He doesn't, like I say, he doesn't have to lead. If you're on a fancy price, then I think you're in a good position. I think he's one of the most likely winners. Layla, I think he's very much ground dependent. Yes, he has won on soft ground. We know that. But he's got one piece of form on good ground to suggest he's a top class Grade 1 horse, and that was when he won at Cheltenham, beat Dynamite Dollars, Defi Desoy, bolted up that day. He went to Sandown and he got thrashed by Dynamite Dollars again, who turned the form around, and Ornea. Yeah. Maybe it might have been a right-handed thing. He might not have been as well as he was at Cheltenham first time out. But if it was genuinely soft, maybe verging on quite testing, that would definitely slightly put me off Layla, because I think he just struggles in that ground, having watched him a few times. So I'm not sure where I sit with him. I certainly wouldn't discount Ornea as well. I think he's quite a useful horse. He'll definitely give you a good run for your money. And the other one is Hardline as well. I'll just throw him into the equation. Gordon Elliott ran him over 2.5 miles last time. He had 2 choices. And they ran something else in the 2 mile race over Dublin weekend week. And I think it was a mistake. He to run him in the first place because he hated the ground. The good ground was absolutely no good to him. He backed off his fences. He made a couple of mistakes. Jack Kennedy looked after him. Then he absolutely took off in the back of the second last. But he clocked a very big number when he beat Gettysburg down in Limerick 2 starts ago. Yes, Gettysburg would have probably won not for that mistake at the last. But that's genuine Grade 1 form. And Gettysburg going right-handed, we know he's almost unbeatable over hurdles and over fences. So if it's a war of attrition, and he's another one that could be ridden off the speed, I think he's a big player. So I'm already on Glenn Forcer, but if you gave me a bet at the prices now, thinking that the ground's going to be soft and it's going to be a strong gallop, I'd have to have a few quid on Hardline as well at a price.
Tony, you said you were keen to take on the Al Dancer in the first. Here we've got a similar price favourite in Layla at 130. How are you looking at this one?
Well, if you actually look on a Betfair at the moment, Glenn Force is actually just about favourite. So it's an interest. They've got a big dilemma here. I mean, obviously everyone knows that horse's forte is he jumping, and I think they've got to bite the bullet and go out in front. But as Andy said, there's any number of horses that would like to go from the front here. And I don't think you even mentioned Duke de Ginevra.
I didn't. I
And
wasn't sure whether he was a definite runner.
yeah,
or
he
not,
is.
but
He is.
okay.
Yeah,
He's another one.
It's going to be on the soft side. I know it went over 2 mile 4 last time, but I think they're gonna go for that race. And again, it's another. It made all a Gowan over 2 mile 4 last time, but it's got 2 mile 4, and they will go from the front with that. I mean, it's got burn up written all over it, and maybe you should look for a should look for a closer, but. I think all the value's been sucked out of it. Amazingly, I thought anyway. I didn't quite get the 40s, but Glenforsa was still 10s in the immediate aftermath of that of that win last time, and I managed to get a little bit of that and a little bit of 9s, and I'm very happy with that. But I am worried about the pace setup in the race. I might make me a bit more unpopular than I already am, but I think Layla or Lawler, however we're pronouncing it. I know it's a. How shall I couch this? It's not trained by a trainer who's been there and done it, prepping horses for Cheltenham. It's not trained by Nicky. It's not trained by Paul Nichols. It's not trained by one of the big Irish trains, and that would worry me. I mean, it's been off for a fair while since that disappointing run in the Henry VIII. Obviously, it was great when it beat Dynamite Donners back in November on the good ground, but. I think the trainer for me would be a little bit of a negative if you are backing towards the top of the market, and we may well come on to that with the Paisley Park as well later on. At the prices, I really couldn't recommend a bet at the moment. Like I said, I think you can make a case for any number of horses in here. I'm a big fan of Knockanoose, but I was at Ascot 3 weeks ago, and I met one of the owners there who I know. And he pulled it up, and I said, "How's your horse after the fall at Leopardstown?" And he pulled up the video from the rear.
Yeah.
It took an unbelievably bad fall there, and it was really sore afterwards. But again, that's another horse that likes to go from the front. I think for me, the most likely winner is Glenforsa, but I think the value's been sucked out of him at 4s and 9-2. I can't see a bet in the race at the moment.
You'd be kind of disgusted if somebody has won an Arkle.
Sorry?
You'd be kind of disgusted if somebody's won an Arkle. It's got all the hallmarks of Western Warhorse, Chin and Champagne Fever all over again. Something like that. I don't know. I think Glenforsa, Johnny Burke's likely to ride it, isn't he? I'd have no issues about him being able to adapt mid-race and not shooting himself in the foot. The more you look at it, the more you kind of probably think that Le Richebourg was pretty close to a good thing, wasn't he? Now that he struggled to find something. I loved Glenforsa at Sandown. I thought the rhythm he got into just effortlessly down the back, and that's where you can really put horses under pressure, particularly at that track. Wouldn't surprise me if us and them's only been beaten by Le Richebourg, and Void de Rev was banged there at the last. If they turn up in the day, you'd probably have a look. I'd rather see Real Steel of the owners of Jared's horses running the Arkle than Duke de Genève. I think he'd love a strong pace to target at. I think he's a horse who does absolutely nothing in front and has loads of ability. But he looks like he's going to JLT, so no light that I can shine upon.
It's definitely the would be an ideal horse for this, wouldn't it? But I think all the vibes suggest it's going to go JLT.
Yeah.
But this will be an ideal race for it with a pace setup. But like I said, I don't see anything leaping out at me at the bet at the current prices.
Yeah, the 8-1 I read out for Defi de Soy is, of course, without non-run, no bet. So if you do back him, I mean, you're getting about 130 with that insurance there. Just a quick word on Camellia de Cotte, who is still entered into the race, Joe.
Yeah, she's entered here, and she's entered in the JLT in one of the handicaps on the Friday, the Grand Annual. I think, given the likely makeup of the race and the way it's going to look, she's a mare that likes to get her own way, like most mares. So we might be leaning more toward the JLT, I think, than anything else. She's been given a £3 higher mark than in England than she was in Ireland, which I guess isn't too bad, but she'll get the £7 in the grade 1 that she wouldn't get in the handicap. So no decision's been made yet, but I would have thought that we'd be leaning more towards the JLT than the Arkle at this stage.
Okay, and the two horses you mentioned there, Us and Them, is 20-1 best price, and that's with Hills, Boyle Sports and Sky Bet, and Voix de Rev is 28-1 with William Hill. On to the third race of the day now, and the Ultima handicap steeplechase. I'm going to pass this one straight over to you guys because I cannot make any sense of this race at whatsoever. So I'll run through the market quickly. Give Me a Copper 7-1, Manila Rocco's 10-1, Single Farm Payment 16s, Tute Per Me 16-1, Mr. Malarkey 16-1, Mr. Whittaker 20-1, 20-1 bar effectively after that. And I'll put it to the floor to see if any of you have any strong fancies here.
Yeah, I've had a bet in this race. I wasn't going to 2-3 weeks ago. It was a race I was going to be quite happy to sit out to the day. Then I spotted that Mr. Whittaker was available at 16-1, and my Shannon man told me that this horse has been going really well since Ascot last time out. He also said that he wasn't quite right early in the early part of the season. He hasn't quite himself, hasn't come to the horse that he was, but he's been showing up quite nicely recently, and they're quite confident of a big run. And the key to him as well, he's got Cheltenham Festival form, albeit over shorter. I think a lot of these fancied horses at the top end of the market, particularly Give Me a Copper, who's got no Cheltenham form. I think he'd be a madman to back that at 6-1.
He's got Drifter written all over it.
Even though, yeah, he was eye-catching the day. Anyone could have seen that, but not sure he's the kind of horse you want in an Ultima. Whereas Mr. Whittaker, he loves a big field. He likes the scrum. I mean, he got into a right war in the Close Brothers last year, and he came out on top. And I think the step up in trip is what he'd been crying out for. You look at him; he's just getting outpaced now over 2.5 miles. He got outpaced in the race Baron Alco won at the old Paddy Power meeting, of course. And every horse gets outpaced by Cerno nowadays, so you'd certainly forgive him that.
He's a half brother to 3.5 mile.
He is, yeah.
I can't remember which horse it is, but he's half brother to us.
Well, Mr. Whittaker.
Yeah, I mean, I backed him at 80s for the Gold Cup actually earlier in the season.
I spoke to Adrian about it before he made his reappearance, and he said he don't think he'd have any problem with 3 miles back then. And obviously the step up in trip is, they think it's very much in its favour.
He's a great jumper as well. You watch Mr. Whittaker. I mean, I've dedicated a lot of my time watching videos of Mr. Whittaker. Certainly last year on the build up to Cheltenham, just trying to find a chink in his armour if I could, and he never misses a beat over his fences. He's deadly, and he's unbelievable. He's one of those horses where there's a crowd of horses in front of him, and instinctively just knows exactly when to take off, even though he's got no room. So I've got no problem with a 20-odd runner race around Cheltenham again. Look, I'm not going to spend hours talking about this race because I've only had one bet, and I'll probably just stick with it. So yeah, Mr. Whittaker, I'm already on him.
Sadly, Mr. Whittaker, that 20s I mentioned has gone. I don't know if people have got bugs here, but 12-1 now best price, and that is with Betfair Sportsbook.
I think that's it.
Tony just opened that up his weekend. I'll soon tapping away on the keypad. Yeah.
If I could get on with 888, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying on a more general point, I mean, might be one for you, Joe. Are we comfortable with the fact that we've had Mick Shannon's not alone in obviously sending horses out to Henrietta Knight? Do you think trainers should be a little bit embarrassed by the fact that they have to farm horses out to other former trainers and training yards to get their horses to jump properly? And I mean, like I said, they're not alone. I mean, obviously Henrietta's done the business of the Bagarwara as well. I'm sometimes a little bit uncomfortable with that, and I just think they should maybe be a little bit embarrassed by the fact is they are paid to train horses and they have to farm it out a bit.
I think it's very common to have horses in pre-training with different people, prior to the start of the season, or if they're coming back from a leg or if they're coming back from injury. And you kind of, for us, just an anecdote, a horse called Some Neck, he won a grade 2 at Punchestown back in, I'm going to say mid of November time, something like that. But he won that only 3 weeks after coming out of pre-training from Sonny Carey, who used to work with Willie and has now set up his own pre-training yard. So you also get a read on which guys have them more forward than others. I think the Henrietta Knight thing is interesting because it's not just Mick Channon that seems to use her. Warren Greatrix has been quite vocal in that he sends. But you're talking about guys who have 80, 100 horses. And Henrietta Knight probably only has 6 or 10 at a time, and she's probably, like Yogi Breisner's been doing with Henderson for years, not just with horses, he's been doing it with jockeys, if I'm not mistaken. No, it doesn't bother me. I just think that if you've got a horse that maybe isn't the most intelligent, or maybe needs to be taught to do things a lot differently than how they are, they're going to need more time to do it properly. I'm
sure it's more widespread. I mean, they are just very high-profile examples of coming out like that. But I'm sure some trainers just wouldn't dream of doing, farming it out elsewhere. I mean, obviously Nichols is famous for, his indoor schools and stuff like that. But maybe he does that. I mean, he has pre-training schools as well. But it just struck me.
I think Will Biddick does an awful lot of pre-training for Nichols. Certainly with the younger horses, breaking and pre-training.
I say it's probably more ignorance, but when I hear about it, I just think, I might be a little bit embarrassed that, but like I said, if you need one-on-one treatment, and you've got 100 horses, then perhaps you haven't got the time to give it 2-3 hours a day.
It's the ones who are being farmed out that don't improve that you're wondering where they went to.
You never hear about them.
Exactly, yeah.
Well,
I just echo what Andy said on Mr. Whittaker, but I don't know where this horse is going to run, but there's one of Simon Munir and Isaac Swed's, Janika. I think there's two pieces of handicap chase for him, one in the UK, one in Ireland, that are going to work out. George Elek and Janika look as though, I think that Cheltenham form is strong. And Janika's by Sadler Maker out of a Capguard mare. All his form has been over 2.5 miles. I can see him improving for a step up in trip to 3 miles, not just on pedigree. But I think if he didn't get any cover the last day at Cheltenham, and if anything, he was coming back in the last 20 yards as well. He's entered absolutely everywhere. I'd love to see him running the 3 miler because I think he'll really improve in his current form when he is stepped up in trip. George Elek has entered later in the week. And in Ireland, there was a handicap chase at the Dublin Racing Festival that was won by Whisper and the Breeze of the Potts and Mrs. Harrington's. He actually got kicked out, told he wasn't welcome in the handicap chases at Cheltenham, so the only race he can run in is the 4 miler. And we've got Live Love Laugh, who was second to him, and unlike Whisper and the Breeze, we're entered in the Aintree Grand National. We were given a mark of 144, which at the time we were 139. So we were given £5 more. We've since gone up a pound because Cadmium won, who was third or fourth behind us in that race at Leopardstown. And I think the English handicapper couldn't give us more than 144 that we got in the National. So we're still in the handicap chases, whereas Whisper in the Breeze isn't. And perversely, it now looks as though he'd have to give us weight when it was the other way around. And Speaker Connolly was third, I think, of that. He's got about 6 entries in the handicap chases as well. I just think those 2 bits of form are going to work out, and wherever those horses do turn up, they'd probably be ones to keep on side.
Yeah, just before we move on, obviously Q-Star Civil won the race last year. It's only £3 higher. Looks like being laid out for the race again. It hasn't had the ideal profile, but Nick Williams and that yard are just very, very good in handicaps at Cheltenham, full stop, so you wouldn't necessarily be put off by that. And whenever you look at the race and you see Manila Rocco as the second favourite, your eyes light up a bit. He did obviously run a much more encouraging race over hurdles at Exeter the last time, but I think you're taking a fair leap of faith if you're backing that horse. You're making that horse a 10-1 second favourite. Albeit, if you go back far enough, obviously he's very well handicapped, but not for me.
I think Tom Segal and Paul Keeley, the amount of column inches that those two have afforded that Manila Rocco is incredible. They must have like a dartboard with Manila Rocco on it. He's just been an absolute nightmare of a horse to predict.
And
he keeps suckering people in every time. He's like, he showed a bit there, he showed a bit there, but ultimately he's a wrong
10-1 in that, it's just ridiculous. There is a bit of 20s Q-Star similar. I think ground on the softer side would be fine. Obviously, it was heavy when it won it last year. I think if you're going to have a bet now, maybe that at 20s is a very fair bet.
Anyone know what's happened to Benatar this year?
No.
He looks absolutely lost.
Yeah.
And he rattled home in the JLT, haven't been prominent, but his form has just been miles below that. In fairness, the JLT hasn't really worked out either. But anyway, he's just another one that caught my eye. Just being thrown in there.
So if Andy's right, as usually, it's going to be a hell of a start to the Tuesday for Mick Shannon with Glenn Forza and then Mr. Whittaker. But a couple of hours there for the Ultima. Moving on now to the Champion Hurdle, and a fascinating contest here. And the market really interesting as well, where Bouvardere just about still the favourite at 2-1. Apples Jade 9-4. Lorena 4-1. Sharjah for Susannah Ricci at 12-1. Verdana Blue 16-1, 20-1 bar. It's one of the races I'm most looking forward to the festival. A lot of people saying that Lorena is way too short in the market. A lot of people also saying they reckon Apples Jade will go a favourite for this as well. Tony, coming to you first. How do you make sense of this?
I haven't got any arguments for the front two of the market, which when you're looking for an each way angle, when the front two of the market are very, very solid, it makes it less attractive, clearly. Like most people, I'd probably be looking to place Lay Lorena on the day. However, I think you're going to have to pay for it because I think everyone's going to be of a similar mindset. Obviously, we don't know what Lorena is, but what we do know is she's going to have to find, 15 to £20 improvement to beat the top two. It could well be there, but for me, I don't think she'll have the pace. Coming back to the ground, I think again I'm assuming it's going to be nearer softer than good to soft on the day, which probably will be against the likes of Verdana Blue. We've got a lot of time for, but I didn't think she had an ideal prep on the flat at Kempton recently, and it's going to be against Sharjah as well. Probably need better ground. I can see the case for Mellon 20s each way. Now he ran really badly at Leopardstown, but the market forecast that just as it did the year before. And if it comes back to that, obviously that next second to Belvedere last year, Mellon could well be the overpriced one in there. I have backed Super Sunday, luckily some non-runner no bet, but I've had a little nibble on Betfair in the 20s, which looks really clever now that the last trading price on Betfair is 170. They've always said it's going to, they're going to run in the champion if they get soft ground, but I think they're going to get the soft ground, but I think they're looking at the stayers and thinking, that could really cut up. For me, I think Espoir Dalan, if that's the fifth favourite and Lorena's the third favourite, I think there must be some prices elsewhere. So, but for me, maybe Mellon at 20s each way. And if you can get, I think there might be. Is there some 20 to 1 normal no bet Mellon with Unibet?
With Unibet, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably 20 to 1 each way. Normal no bet Unibet is probably the bet in the race. But the problem, as I come back to, I think the front two of the market are very, very solid. I think Apple's Jade probably would be my pick of the pair, but I wouldn't have much in it, and that pretty much aligns with the betting.
If there's ever an advert to why you should use Oddschecker, if you're backing Mellon and you backed it blind with Labrix, you'll be getting 7 to 1 or on no bet when Unibet are 20 to 1. So big prices out there if you're shopping around. Andy, how do you, looking at those top two or the top three in the market, I mean, can you split them or are you looking at bigger prices?
It's just a fascinating race, isn't it? Obviously, we've got the inclusion of the two mares this year, which we didn't really expect earlier in the season. Pre-Christmas, it looked like we were already putting the garland around Belvedere's neck. So from that point of view, from a betting perspective, from a spectacle perspective, all of a sudden I think we've got now probably one of the best champion odds we're going to see for quite a while. And how it's run is obviously going to be crucial to the outcome in most races, but even more so here. As far as I could see, there's at least two of the front runners along with Apple's Jade. One of them in particular is going to be more or less a sacrificial lamb again. That's Charlie Parks. You'd imagine connections at Belvedere will be thinking, well, Faheen wanted to make the run last year and they managed to do a number on him. Apple's Jade's going to want to row around both in front. To be at her best anyway, I always think she's better when she's bullying opposition. She doesn't. I know she has come off the pace before, like she did in the 2.5 mile race when she got a lead and then took it up at halfway.
You'd be worried about Global Citizen as well, wouldn't you? There?
And then you've got Global Citizen. I was going to say you've got him into the equation. Not to mention if Petit Mouchoir comes in here as well. So there's going to be loads of pace sign on here. So as a punter, I'm going to be uncomfortable backing Apple's Jade. I think if she got a freebie and it was an ordinary, if it was just a match between, let's say, one against another, and there's no other outside forces, you'd want to be on with her all day long. But this is a proper horse race in the sense that jockeys are going to have to get the tactics right. You're going to have to be in the right place at the right time. You're going to have to avoid mistakes. Everything, the ground's going to have to be crucial for your horse. And I think Barry Gerrits will be going out there with a huge smile on his face here, with a bit more confidence this year, knowing that he's got a target to run at. Yeah. He's got a horse that knows his way around the champion hurdle course. Come the big day, he turns up, as Nicky Henderson's horses often do. Again, he's had a similar campaign to what he normally has. He hasn't been overfaced. He's run on easy races, flat tracks where he hasn't been put to the sword. If he runs anywhere near that level when he won first time out in the fighting fifth, I think he'll win and he'll win comfortably. The great thing is he's edging that to a sort of a nice price. And if the money comes for Apple's Jade, dare I say, you could almost be thinking about backing Belvedere into each-way multiples, because it's daft. It sounds 5 to 2, 11 to 4, even 3 to what. It could even go out to that. You're getting caught at the odds. I mean, it's like putting your hand in the till, isn't it, for an each-way bet? It's literally a freebie.
Especially with 12 to 1 bar, the top three, and Mercedes Arena's too short. So
barring a fall, it's impossible to see Belvedere not being in the free. He'll come there cantering, going down from the second last to the last, and then whether he just goes and puts it to bed and Apple's Jade's been softened up, that would probably be the scenario that you'd hope for if you fancy him. I agree with the boys about Lorena. I wouldn't be as absolute dogmatic about her at the moment because we haven't had enough evidence. But the thing that kind of worries me is when she ran last time out at Punchestown, and that was only a prep race, and I know she was only in third gear, but I was expecting more of her off my time figures. I remember when Annie Power won that race, and she was considerably quicker than the other races on the card, which you'd expect from a champion hurdle aspirant.
Limini was the same, dear.
Limini was the same, absolutely battered all the other horses on the card. But insult to horse of Henry de Bromans, who won a maiden hurdle over 2.5 miles, went 2:29.3 for the circuit. Lorena did 2:31, so that was 1.7 seconds slower. Lorena was a maiden hurdle winner. And then if you did from the back of the second last, they've both clocked 39.8. It doesn't read right. A champion hurdle horse should be running quicker than a horse in a main hurdle going flat out at the end of a strongly run race. So that's the reason why I agree with the boys with Lorena. Based on my evidence I've got there, I just don't think she's quick enough to win a champion hurdle.
Based on the evidence, there's no reason for her to be 4-1 for the races there.
And yet, like I say, when she had a good pace in last year's mare race, she was good and she was quite good on the figures. So, like I say, I'm at 6s and 7s with her, but ultimately I'll come back off the back of that run last time out.
I think, as Ruby said, they don't know it.
No,
he doesn't know either.
She's just an unknown. Too much of an unknown quantity.
She's easy to crab, but it's. I think.
But it's like
you wouldn't be surprised if she's still travelling there, coming to the last either at the same time.
Yeah. You're a brave man if you want to. I mean, Tony's probably got it right loud in the place market because it's minimal damage.
Yeah.
If he's right, he's going to be right spectacularly. But I wouldn't want to be laying her at 6-7-1 if she goes out of that sort of price. She's too good of a mare to be risking at that price.
I'm one of the many people who backed her on the 15th of March last year, I think, and I've been sitting on it for a year.
Yeah.
What price do you get?
12s.
All right.
It's okay, yeah, it's all right.
So
lay it back at 5.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, in summary, like, everything's going to be set up perfectly for Belvedere to run to his best, and at his best, that's usually pretty good enough. Yeah.
And Joe, so you're nodding along with.
I think Ruby and Barry are. I think it's a very big moment for Jack with Apple's Jade because there's probably only one way that she can be ridden, especially over this trip. I'm not sure Charlie Parks is as much the issue as perhaps the Pauline horse. But I think Ruby's going to be able to take a posse just in behind without having to worry. So he'll be able to get what's likely to be a lively mare settled. But I think the race just sets up lovely for Belvedere. And I think if it does get soft, I think his best form is arguably on softer ground anyway. I think Sharjah's chance is quite literally in the hands of Simon Clace. From a watering point of view, not so much the skies. We also have Saldi in here, and he's probably likely to run. And at the start of the season, he'd have been the one that we would have been saying could step up. He's a horse we think an awful lot of, but he's had a shocking prep. He'd have probably, Ruby's adamant he'd have beaten Esport Dallin back in November when he fell at the last. And it wasn't a fall that was the issue, but there was a horse coming behind him which actually gave him a kick and broke his nose. So that's what's left him out for some time, and then the whole equine flu stuff, etc. So he's just had an awful prep. But certainly with a view to the future, he's a horse to keep an eye on. It's just a pity. He's gone up 5 pounds since for not actually leaving because of Esport Dallin's form. I think Belvedere is, there's a reason he's 1-2, and Nicky's brilliant at these champion hurdlers. I just think the race sets up perfect for Barry. I think the ground is going to go against Sharjah, I'm afraid, unfortunately.
How big a fact do you think? I mean, obviously, he's won on soft ground at Galway, but I don't know how soft it was that day. But
that was.
Do you really think the ground's a massive factor? The form would suggest it probably is.
Yeah, I think it is. And I just think he finds life a bit easier on it as much as anything else. He, like last year at the. He fell at Christmas when he jumped the Shadow. The Dublin Racing Festival, when he was against Samcro back at 2 miles, he literally was there tanking as they were leaving the back straight. And just as the pace quickened, he just can't let himself down. His legs just start spinning, which is odd because a lot of the Dr. Dinos seem to be going on softer ground, but maybe that's just him. He's more of a flatbread type. But Galway, I think Bedrock may have been the best horse in the day there. He just didn't win because Bedrock was actually behind Max Dynamite after 3 hurdles, who hadn't jumped any of the first 3, and he's come from a mile back to finish second. Patrick, he's a horse whose confidence is flying at the moment, and Patrick certainly seems to get on very well with him. That's not to say he's going to ride him or anything like that, but I just think that the quicker they go on better ground, he's just able to do things so much easier. He just finds life that much easier on better ground.
Just come out of the ground, just one final point on the ground. I mean, Simon Clace has got a tricky decision to make, because it's an unsettled forecast. There's not a great deal of rain forecast in any given day from the forecast I use, but there's consistent bands of rain coming up. So if that doesn't materialise, at what point does he start, getting the taps turned on?
But the trouble is as well, I've found with Cheltenham in recent years that it doesn't take racing very well on softened ground. It starts to get chewed up very quickly. The November meeting's a prime case in point that everyone is going for these narrow strips of ground on either side, and I know they alternate courses as well. I think while it drains very well when there's no activity on it. But when there's racing on it, a 4-day festival, we saw it last year come to Gold Cup Day, that was only the second day on that track. I don't think it takes racing very well.
The one thing I will say about that though, this year has been different, isn't it? Because I think in the last few years we've been racing on genuinely soft, heavy winter ground, and it's been chewed up, and I think they've had problems getting it back to where they want. But this year, because of the amazing climate we've had, I don't think it'd be as relevant. But I agree with Joe with regards Sharjah. Funny enough, he's my quickest horse I've got in the champion hurdle lineup. Based on my speed figures this season, he's winning the Morgiana was absolutely off the charts. He's a right weapon when the grounds are decent. I actually put him up a week ago in a
good form. I wouldn't put you off. It's
absolutely,
he's a good form at home.
He's deadly, but the forecast is rather putting me off a little bit. I was prepared to be with him sort of 8, 9, 10 to 1.
Yeah, 12 to 1 best price.
Yeah, I think no matter what the ground is cold on the Tuesday, if you see the times of the Supreme and the Arkle and they don't seem to be too slow, I think then you could probably
definitely.
It's interesting. I think I've read something recently saying it's been good to soft at the festival in a couple of times in the last 4 or 5 years, and there's been near record times on good to soft ground. Yeah. So but I think with the health and safety concerns this year, I think they're going to.
It was the nap of the week, wasn't it? What's the ground going to be on the opening day of the festival?
Yeah,
It was the nap of the week for a few years.
Well, unfortunately, last year with the 50 to 1 heavy came up.
Yeah.
Heavy last year, wasn't it? Yeah, but it's like I said, who'll be a clerk of the course? But like I said, I think I'm just going on the basis of soft, good to soft.
Moving on now, 3 more to get through in this first day, opening day video and podcast, and we're on to the mares now, where it's fair to say the person to my left should be able to give us a little bit of a steer. Benny Didier 5 to 4, Limini 8 to 1, Stormy Island 9 to 1, Roxana 11 to 1, Lady Buttons 18 to 1, and then of course Lorena and Apples Jade both 5 and 11 to 2 if you want to take a chance, but with no run, no bet. Apples Jade odds on and Lorena odds against you. We have to expect that both of those will be in the race that we've just spoken about before. So Benny Didier, let's start with.
You would think that so long as the other 2 mares, Apples and Lorena, don't turn up here, that she looks to have an outstanding chance, and if that's the case, I'd say our best chance of the week. She won it last year. She's unbeaten for us. We'd love to be over fences with her, but she's so good over fences, but she does put an awful lot of pressure on herself behind in that regard, that you just can't keep her in training for very long after it. I remember last year Ruby came into the parade ring before the race and just said we made a mistake the year before when Vroom Vroom Mag and Limini took on Apples Jade either side of her. He said, no matter, you won't see me until the last hurdle, and no matter what side of the track Apples Jade is on, I'll be on the other. And that's literally what he carried out. I know Apples Jade had plenty of excuses at Cheltenham and Punchestown last year. We weren't 100% on the day at Cheltenham, and we were an awful lot better come Punchestown as well, and I think Paul again was coming wide of Apples Jade at Punchestown and got there about a year too soon. But look, she's a mare we think the world of. We just want to see more of her. She was due to run in the Relkeel at Cheltenham on New Year's Day, but I think in light of how Willie's ran over Christmas, he just decided I'm not going to send her over to England for her first run of the season, when all of his clearly weren't 100%. And while not ideal from a spectator and indeed an ownership point of view, not to see a horse during the season, I have no concerns about Willie just gearing one up to go straight to Cheltenham, and if she wants to go on to Aintree then again and then Punchestown after, that's absolutely fine. I wouldn't mind her running the Galway plate off of 1:47. I think it is later in the season as well, as I think she'd take whacking. But yeah, she looks to have an outstanding chance, and she's in very, very good form at home. Limini really felt the Cesarewicz for quite a while after, and she wasn't really letting herself down in subsequent runs in the flat and indeed over hurdles. She ran a bit better in the Hatton's Grace, but Rachel gave her a lovely ride in the Galmoy hurdle the last day, and she probably appreciated the softer ground. So I can see her running well.
Ran a cracker last year as well.
Yeah, where'd she run last year?
Oh, no, sorry, 2 years ago. I'm talking about
when
they all jumped the last together, yeah.
Yeah. So, she's not as good as she was. She's had her own physical issues, but I can see her. I'd be disappointed if she wasn't in the 4, let's put it that way. And I'd just give a shout out to Joseph's horse, Slow Motion, who didn't run too badly on her first run back over hurdles, I think, behind Lorena in that race. And I think coming back from fences, horses will always improve for a couple of runs over hurdles.
I'm just seeing there, Slow Motion 50-1 at the moment, best price with William Hill and Coral. Andy, how are you judging this one?
I never normally that mad bonkers on these mares races. They don't make too much of a betting appeal for me. It's a difficult one to back, isn't it, from a pro punter's point of view? Benny Didier, first time out. Obviously, we know Willie Mullins is just a genius with these races. I think he's, out of the sort of 18 mares races there's been, he's won virtually all of them. But there's more than one way to skin a cat here, so I think there's a good bet without the favourite on the day, providing their bet similar to how they are now, and that's Roxana, Dan Skelton's horse. I know Dan's prepared her especially for the race. Got a good friend that has got horses with Dan, and he's been very sweet on her in the build up to the race. He's only given her the one run this season, kept her powder dry. If you watch that race back, it will be on Belvedere and Vision to Flow. She was just literally having a score around over 2 miles. She was never going to beat champion hurdle horses, but she came there cruising to looked dangerous and then blew up, and then obviously was looked after thereafter. That should have put a spot on. The time of that race worked out really well with the festival. And don't forget, she was good second over 3 miles to Santini last year in that Grade 1 at Aintree. So she's got Grade 1 form. She's no mug. She's a big danger to Benedidu. I know Benedidu's good, but is she that good? She deserves to be even money. Roxana 11s.
Yeah, Roxana best price 11s at the moment. We
10
spoke
times
to
the price?
we spoke to Harry Skelton a week or so ago, filming some camel racing with him, and we asked him for his bet to look out for. You can see the camel video on all Oddschecker channels, I should say. And we asked Harry for a horse to follow, and he said Roxana pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
her best form's in springtime, actually.
Exactly. That's another point. She hasn't run around Cheltenham, which is always something I look for, and that's any slight niggle. But ability-wise, she'd be miles better than the UK horses.
Yeah.
I think she's an insulting price still. Limine, I respect her. Agree with Joe that Galmoy hurdle race was a good one this year. I think De Russo's won out of it since he was 5th. It's funny that, because I think the 4 or 5 horses that raced wide that day took out the first 4 positions, so you needed to be wide on the track. But she ran on all the way to the line, and of course she's a Cheltenham Festival winner. So at 8-1, you could either Dutch those two each way. Limine and Roxana, if you shop around, you're back
Sticking each way multi with Belvedere on the day.
You're going to get one in the frame, aren't you? You get the majority
yeah.
of your money back. But I think the bet on the day would probably be Roxana each way without the favourite, because they'd probably be like 9-2, 5-1. I really like betting without the favourite. When there's a short one, you haven't got to worry about whether it wins or not. You've got basically you're saying you've got 4 places, Roxana. Benedidu places. So I think that's a good option. In a race where not that many can win.
Yeah.
I think there's at the current prices. I think is the bet of the day in here, and that's Stormy Island 8-1, no one on no bet. If you listen to some people, Willie Mullins would rather run Lorena here, but in the same colours, I think Stormy Island, he's got a very, very strong challenger. If you look at her form, I mean, she's only been beaten 3 times in the last 5 starts. I mean, she's beaten a really good Yartic, good time Tara the other 2 occasions, but she's been beaten by Mr. Dino in Auteuil, Espardelane over 2 miles at Limerick, and obviously she ran a really, really eye-catching race for me anyway, behind Lorena last time. I think she's very much underrated in this race. She's only £5 shy of the favourite on official Irish ratings. I think there's plenty more to come from her, and that run behind Lorena last time, I mean, I don't think, she wasn't overly exerted there. I think they took a bit of a pull coming around the bend there as well. Lorena went past, but I love the way she stuck on there. I find it very, very hard to see her coming out the frame. We've already mentioned, you've got to respect the likes of Lorena, Roxana, but I don't think Stormy Island loses anything in comparison to them. An 8 non-1 and no bet, I think you can get that with Bet Victor and
Bet365 and Unibet.
I think that's the call. I don't know for certain whether the horse is going to go there, but I'm led to believe that is the case. But I want the non-1 and no bet. Safety net at 8-1 rather than the top price 9s that's out there. For me, at the current prices sitting here now, Stormy Island 8 non-1 and no bet each way is probably the bet of the opening day.
Tuesday. Perfect. 2 more to get through. We're going to have to rattle through them because we've already overshot this by quite a long way, but so much to get through. So on to the Close Brothers. A Plutard 10-1, favourite Clondall Castle 12-1, Campador 12-1, Riders on the Storm 12-1. I mean, it's as ever so open. So I'll put it to the floor to see if any of you guys have any fancies here.
I'll be very quick here. I've got no opinion in those 2 races at the moment, but I would say we'll probably come onto it in a bit as well. I'd be probably wanting to run OK Corral in the RSA rather than the National Hunt Chase, but he's an obvious favourite in here if you've got to respect Ballyward. But no betting opinion. I haven't had a bet in those 2 races, and I probably won't until the day.
Andy?
There's potentially a very well handicapped horse, I think, in the Close Brothers. Usually goes to a horse that's going to be a future graded horse, i.e., Master Whittaker, that kind of type. And then Henry de Brommer's got a nice horse called a Plutard. He won a very hot Nace.
You guys,
the second time you've done that to me.
There you go.
I'll throw it to you first.
I always end up hacking off someone.
You want to jump in first?
The day when he beat Duke
it's like countdown, isn't it? I had that word as well.
But the day when he beat Duke de Geneva at Nice early on the season, I clocked that race being very good, exceptionally good. In fact, I think there was 2 races on the card. Punches Cross won the other one, and Punches Cross did 251 or 252 for the circuit, and a Plutard did 244. It's like about 40 lengths difference between the 2 over the same course of distance.
Punches Cross won again the next day.
Punches Cross won the next day. Obviously, Duke de Geneva, we know what he did last time out. Midnight Stroll, who was 4th, I think he lagged in next time out, back over hurdles at Cork. Ex-Patriot, he won next time out. Thurles, albeit slightly fortuitously. Carter Mackay, Impact Factor ran in that race. He's run well since. It was just a really good. It was what I would tend to call like a group race beginners when you get them, or graded race beginners. And they took in a Punches down next time out. He was backed off the board to win a grade 3. He went all the way around the outside, gave the outside to no one, and in the end, he ended up getting picked off by Winter Escape, who I think is a very good, smart horse. Yeah. I don't know what the connection have done with that horse because he looked a wrong one with Alan King. But the time figure of that race is good. He's done some good numbers, and I just like his attitude. I think he's quite a classy horse. He gets in here off 140. There's certainly not a better handicapped horse if you're a weights and measures man, because I think he's definitely going to be running graded races next year. Whatever beats him will win, basically. So I'd have a good bet on him at the moment. I think, was he 10-1?
Strong words, 10-1. A bit of blue around as well, so suggest that 10-1 may not be around for too long.
Well, echo all that. 2 other things. I think novice in the handicap chases. Obviously, it's a novice chase as well, but just in general in the handicap chases and the handicap hurdle, see novices coming through. They sometimes get in a little bit lighter. Not that matters here. Riders on the Storm will appreciate the trip, but back to a Plutard. I wouldn't underestimate the fact that Shively Park are spreading their horses around to Gordon, Willie and Henry in Ireland. I think the 3 of them will be fairly keen to get them a winner on their first main go at Cheltenham. I don't know, is Castafiore going to run here? Longsden's mare, do we know where she's going?
I'm not sure. I'm actually doing a preview night with Charlie Longsden tonight.
You can let us know.
Yeah, if we can tell you, then you can edit that in. I'll let you know.
But no, I'd fancy a Plutard. I've managed to get a little bit of 20s and OK Corral for the National Hunt Chase quite a while ago. But I think that's
130 now. So yeah,
that's going to be the best novice chase I think at a festival between Ballyward and Discorama, who's an underestimated horse wherever he turns up. I know he's got plenty of options. Gordon mentioned headgear for Champagne Classic. Mr. Malarkey was good at Ascot. Mortal is definitely better than his last run as well. So I think that's going to be a fascinating race.
So yeah, OK Corral for this is the final race of the day, the National Hunt Chase. Just to run through the market: OK Corral 100-30, Ballyward 4-1, Champagne Classic 8-1, Discorama 12-1, Impulsive Star 14-1, Delta Work, who of course we doubt will run in the race at 16s, Mr Malarkey at 16s, Mortal as you mentioned 20-1, and 20-1 Bar.
My only problem with OK Corral, I almost think he's too good or too fast to get the 4 miles. I mean, if you're on a big price, it's great. You're in a lovely position. You could almost lay him back now and just have a free bet. I certainly wouldn't want to be backing him at 3-1 because I think 4 miles might just find him out. I mean, he clocked a fantastic time when he won at Warwick. He looked a really good operator that day. That 3 mile race is quicker than the 2 mile race on the last circuit. I was thinking, how this horse can keep that pace up for 4 miles, and they do go a good clip in this. Whereas Ballyward looks an absolute out and out stayer, doesn't he? Yeah. Along with Discorama, I put Discorama up that day. I don't know if you remember when he come there looming up alongside.
I don't think that was a foregone conclusion.
Absolutely not. I thought he was throwing down a big challenge, and he took a while to warm up as well that day. Discorama, he was a bit sketchy early on, but once he got into top gear, he absolutely flew home. I also rate Discorama. I have ever since he won his maiden chase. So I
still
think
chuckle at his maiden hurdle win at Fairyhouse last year.
Sorry,
I still chuckle at his maiden hurdle win at Fairyhouse.
He's got a huge amount. And Paul Nolan has had a really good season as well under the radar. He's coming back into the big time, and I think Discorama has a good chance of putting him back on the map. But I think those two out of that chase that Ballyward won last time, the forms worked out. Chris's Dream and Champagne Classic were first and second next time out in the 10 up. It's hard to knock, and they look as I think they look more copper bottom stayers than OK Corral, who I think wouldn't be the first horse to go there with a really sexy profile and not quite get home. I mean, it found out Native River, didn't it, in the end? So he won a Gold Cup, and I think OK Corral should be in the 3 mile race. I think he'd probably win that.
Yeah.
So we'll tie it up now, just rattling through each of your best bets of the day. Tony, I think we just heard what yours is.
Yeah, current price is Stormy Island, 8's not on a no bet in the mare's hurdle.
Andy?
Probably 2 really. Plutard in the Close Brothers, I think he'll go well, and Roxana each way without the fav.
Napping a horse that doesn't have a price yet is good. But
so what price would you be looking at?
I think it'd be about a 9-2, 5-1 shot without.
3 places, cracker, isn't it?
Yeah, that'll do, mate.
Joe?
Benny's the obvious one, but in the spirit of trying to give something at a decent price, and Andy's already nicked that Plutard. If Janika turns up in the Ultima, I'd be very interested.
Janika currently 25-1, but that is without no bet. I think it's a bit of 16s with the insurance. Thanks so much to the panel for giving us their thoughts on the first day of the Cheltenham Festival. There's obviously, of course, got Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. This is being released both as a podcast through iTunes and all your other podcast places, and also on YouTube where you can watch us as well. So make sure you listen to the other days.